Welcome back to the flow state. I am so pumped you're here today. We are jumping right into the ultimate explainer, your true zero to hero fantasy football playbook. Look, if you've been searching for that definitive guide to totally dominating your fantasy league, pulling from the absolute best strategies out there, well, you just found it. We're going to break down the core mechanics, those sneaky little hacks, and the exact winning formulas that separate the absolute champions from, well, everyone else. But real quick, I gotta ask you a question. Are you sick and tired of finishing in dead last? Are you completely exhausted by all the trash talk on your league's message boards? Or, maybe you're just fed up with accidentally auto-drafting a kicker in the fourth round? Honestly, we've all been there, but those days are officially over. By the end of this explainer, you're gonna have the expert hacks and the rock-solid foundation you need to absolutely crush your friends and coworkers this season. Now, before we start unlocking these league-winning secrets, do me a massive favor, will you? Go ahead and smash that like button right now and subscribe to the Flow State channel. We're constantly dropping dynamic explainers exactly like this one to keep you right at the top of your game. So make sure you're subscribed. You definitely don't want to miss out on any kind of edge. All right, let's dive right into it. What is fantasy football, really? At its core, it's basically a math-based game. Now, hey, don't let the word math scare you away. You're essentially stepping into the shoes of a general manager, assembling a squad of real-life NFL players. And here's the deal. Every single week, the real-world production of the players on your roster, I'm talking their actual rushing yards, passing yards, and touchdowns out there on the field, that translates directly into fantasy points for your team. The goal? Super simple. Just score more fantasy points than the buddy you're matched up against that particular week. To rack up all those points, you obviously need a team. A standard roster setup usually looks something like this. You've got one quarterback, two running backs, two wide receivers, one tight end, and one flex spot. Now that flex spot is incredibly valuable because you can plug in a running back, a wide receiver, or a tight end. Throw in one full team defense, one kicker, and usually around 6 bench spots. Think of this structure as your blank canvas. Now, here's the absolute most critical rule of the whole game: managing your active starters versus the bench. You only, and I mean only, earn points from the players who are sitting right there in your active starting lineup once their actual games kick off. If a guy goes off for a record-breaking 5-touchdown game, but you left him chilling on your bench, yeah, you get exactly 0 points for it. Ouch, right? So roster management and knowing exactly who to start is literally just as important as drafting good players in the first place. Section 1, Mastering the Snake Draft. The draft. It's the absolute foundation of building a championship caliber team. Honestly, it's probably the most anticipated day of the entire fantasy year, and understanding exactly how it works is your first major step toward that title. Let's break down the mechanics of a typical sneak draft. Just imagine a 10-team league, okay? The order goes straight from player 1 down to 10. But here's the twist. Once that 10th person makes their pick, the draft snakes. It loops right back around. So the person who picked last in the first round gets to pick first in the second round, going from 10 right back down to 1. It's a great system because it keeps things fair and makes sure the person with the number 1 overall pick doesn't just hog all the best players. Okay, get ready for our first massive expert hack. The number is 700. Check this out. Last season, 4 of the top 6 fantasy quarterbacks had 700 or more rushing yards. The strategy here is crystal clear. You need a dual-threat quarterback. If your QB isn't getting you points with their legs, they basically need to be throwing 40-plus touchdowns a year just to keep up. Drafting a quarterback who can run the ball, it gives you a huge mathematical advantage every single week. Here's another magic number you're gonna want to remember. 310. The top 5 running backs in fantasy points per game all had at least 310 touches last season. When it comes to running backs, volume is absolute king. You don't just want any running back. You want the guys who are getting those high-value touches. That means they're catching passes out of the backfield, and they're getting the ball shoved in their gut in the red zone, inside the 20-yard line, where the odds of scoring a 6-point touchdown completely skyrocket. Now, when we pivot over to wide receivers, the strategy shifts a bit. Wide receivers are actually way safer early round draft picks. Why is that? Simple. A much lower injury risk. Think about it for a second. Running backs are constantly diving headfirst into massive piles of 300-pound defensive linemen. Wide receivers, on the other hand, they're generally catching the ball in open space, getting tackled by smaller defensive backs, or just stepping out of bounds. You really want to target receivers with a massive target share, which basically just means their real-life quarterback is looking to throw their way all the time. So for those crucial early rounds, if you can snag an elite tight end, I'm talking one of those top 3 guys who basically act like glorified wide receivers, do it. Do it for sure. Having an elite tight end provides such a huge positional advantage over the rest of your league. However, on the flip side, wait until the very final rounds to draft your kicker and your defense. Defensive scoring almost never carries over consistently from season to season, so you're way better off streaming. That just means picking up a new defense week to week based entirely on who happens to have a really good matchup. All right, once the draft is over, the real fun begins, the trading. But please, I am begging you, do not be that person in your league offering totally ridiculous trades. You can't just offer an elite quarterback like Aaron Rodgers in exchange for some random backup receiver and like a used iPad. Your league mates are just going to tell you to take your car, take yourself seriously, and go home. Make sure your trades actually make sense and benefit both teams if you ever want anyone to deal with you. Section 2, Team Culture and the Waiver Wire. Look, fantasy football is intensely competitive. Absolutely. But it's also about hanging out with your friends, talking a little friendly trash on the message boards, and building a fun team identity. A massive part of that is picking a brilliant, punny team name. Like if you happen to draft Chris Olave, maybe name your team Olave Garden. Just have fun with it. But when it comes to the nitty-gritty of managing that team, mastering the waiver wire is everything. This is where you grab players who weren't drafted. First off, all free agent players lock the second their real-life games start. So let's say a star player gets injured on Sunday, and suddenly his backup is super valuable. You'd submit a waiver claim for that backup. Now, if multiple people claim the same guy, the person with the highest waiver priority wins him. But here's the catch. Use it wisely, because the moment you win a claim, boom, you drop straight to the back of the priority line. To keep that flow state going strong throughout a really long season, you've got to stick to a weekly checklist. Always check for bye weeks. That's the 1 week a year an NFL team gets to take off, and trust me, you do not want to start players who are literally on vacation. Also, monitor injury news right up until the game's lock so you don't accidentally take a 0 in your lineup. Take a few minutes to analyze defensive matchups to figure out who you should maybe leave on your bench, and keep tossing out those win-win trade offers to consistently level up your roster. Section 3, Playoffs, Glory, and the Sacco. If you stick to this playbook all the way through weeks 14 to 17, there is a fantastic chance you've made the fantasy playoffs. And once you're in, it is all about survive and advance. You string together some wins, and you take home the championship belt, the trophy, or the ring. But you gotta beware of the Sacco. While winning gets you all the glory, tons of hardcore leagues enforce a pretty brutal punishment for the manager who finishes in dead last. In some legendary leagues out there, this has literally meant having to get a terrible tattoo designed by the league champion. Yeah, you absolutely do not want to be the one holding the Sacco at the end of the year. All right, we've covered the draft, the waiver wire, those elite roster strategies, and the very real stakes of the game. So I'm going to leave you with this one final question. Are you ready to enter the flow state and claim your championship belt? Take these hacks, apply them directly to your league, and go dominate. Hey, if this explainer helped you out, be sure to drop a comment down below with your best team name. And of course, don't forget to like and subscribe to the Flow State channel for more winning strategies all season long. Now get out there and go get that ring.